Hey guys, Vice Fist right here, and today we're taking a look at our friends over on the Preservation side of Evoker. I've been playing a ton of Preservation in dungeons lately, and I gotta say, it's an absolute blast. There's so many little mini combos in which you can order your spellcasts that offer different results, and it really encourages you to put some serious forethought into your decision making each and every single cast. Like Disc Priest, we actually gained some healing throughput and efficiency by weaving our damage abilities into our rotation. So for those of you who don't typically align with the healer role, there is more than enough incentive to take a look into Preservation. Seriously, it feels really good. I promise you won't be disappointed. Preservation's getting an extra 5-yard range added on, so as Devastation dudes gain something from hyping up our healer spec and its new 30-yard range. Alright, let's dive in. First and foremost, there are a few key elements I want you to get used to that are strong across all different builds. Number 1. Casting a fully empowered Fire Breath as the tank is starting the pull is your first point, not only because it's your best DPS button, but also because of Life Giver's Flame. 80% of the damage Fire Breath does, both the initial hit and the dot, is also turned into a floating smart heal that bounces around, triaging your allies. Life Giver's Flame is often a big chunk of my healing and can even cover the smaller incidental damage alone, giving you more time to DPS. And the best part is just fire and forget, no thought required. It just works for you. Number 2. Echo. You want to spread echoes before damage starts coming out so you can get used to planning ahead. This is our bread and butter as it offers a mini ramp to our playstyle and helps fill the gaps in our kit with creative and well planned use. Get used to it. Learn it. Love it. Echo reversion your tank for double hots like Druid, or ramp spread echoes like Disc Priest. Time Lord is a given. It makes our echoed heals actually heal for slightly more than the original heal, 105% with this talent. We have some really great burst healing buttons, and Echo just doubles their effectiveness. Number 3. Verdant Embraces are a single target, oh shit, emergency burst heal. Seriously, this thing is so great I wish I had it on a lower cooldown, because anytime there's any serious damage going out, I'm constantly watching this button's cooldown so that I can use it again. Why? It has some really great synergistic talents that are likely just too good not to take in any Preservation build. Lifebind passively adds a mini beacon of light to the person you VE, replicating 40% of the healing received to bonded targets. Notice how I said targets? Yeah, this thing gets spread by Echo too. The duration is short, only 5 seconds, but it's a massive play to have echoes out, VE a target to burst heal everyone, and then send out another heal immediately after. Could even just be a living flame. It'll still get an immense amount of value via this guy. If that's not enough of a reason to love VE, check out another Preservation staple, Call of Viscera. I mentioned being able to spread a living flame across your allies with Lifebind's Echo spread. This guy makes it even better. Your next living flame will heal for double or Dream Breath increased by 40%. Most of the time I'm going to just use this on Dream Breath, but there is absolutely merit to use the buff on a Lifebinded living flame, just so that we can Dream Breath after if needed. This way we can spread the healing power out over 2 different casts, instead of superpowering one Dream Breath, because even right now, Dream Breath is so freaking big you'll often be overhealing a bit anyways. Number 4. Dream Breath, my favorite button. This thing is hands down the best design and power ability Evoker has, as it's the only one with 2 different things that change per empower level, the amount of heal and the CD incurred. Ideally, I'm soft ramping this in anticipation of a group damage event, so that by the time it's fully empowered, I'm letting it rip the instant we take damage, and this is for multiple reasons. Dream Breath's CD is extremely low when fully empowered, so naturally, you will want to almost always fully empower. Let's use Big Button more. Additionally, empower spells start going on cooldown the second you start casting it, so the sooner you start empowering it, the sooner it'll be up. By the time a rank 4 Dream Breath goes off, you're already looking at a sub 7 second cooldown. I won't always fully empower it, of course. I'll sometimes cast it at rank 1 or 2, that's often only because I didn't anticipate the damage intake and had to use it as quickly as possible to keep people from dying. This feels extra bad because again, this means the heal is a bit smaller and you just added another 10 plus seconds to Dream Breath's cooldown with the lower empower level, and we'll now have to work extra hard to fill that gap should there be even more group damage coming out in the meantime. This is why it's so important to already be pre-positioned and anticipating group damage to really get the most out of this amazing spell. Add Renewing Breath in there and you increase its throughput by 30%. I love how you can have this hot up almost half the time. Absolutely love it. Now with those 4 general tips, let's take a look at the builds. I'm going to quickly go over 5 different builds, some for raids, some for dungeons, which I feel all have a good shot at being the meta build. Here's a quick display of them, first with icons and then with talent names, to be used as a quick reference for all the people looking for a build to try. Don't worry, I'll cover them right now, but pause here as you'd like. A dungeon also included in the next few builds is Temporal Anomaly, which I'll refer to as TA from here on out. Overall, it's really simple. Definitely invalidates a lot of the thought and planning required from a non-TA build, and I'll show you that later on, but it's very strong. Think of TA like Frost Mage's Frozen Orb. You aim in a direction and it fires forward from where you're facing. We always take Resonating Sphere to help spread echoes. Generally, I'm just hitting TA on CD, letting it spread 2+ echoes to get reversions out. Again, my main buttons are Revert and Embrace for the emergency spot heal, and Dream Breath for the group damage event. Spirit Bloom as a backup here. You could still see use for manually spreading echoes and reversions in between should you need more healing, but that generally isn't needed in heroics currently. But since TA aims in a small group, usually aimed towards melee and tank, you'll want to get in the habit of keeping an eye on where your ranged are and making sure they always have an echo up in advance. Remember, Preservation Echo works like a mini ramp, so when shit hits the fan and you don't already have your echo spreading, then you're already behind and may be forced to hit one of your emergent CDs to compensate, which then gets even worse should the fan get even shittier. Build 2. This is how Preservation plays without Temporal Anomaly. TA is extremely strong in dungeon, but looks to be weaker in raid than its alternatives. You lose a lot of extra echoes from TA, but remember that a casted echo is over 2 times as strong as one from TA anyways. This build requires a lot of extra forethought since you can no longer just spam shields out and will need to intelligently cycle your empowers and cooldowns to output sustained group healing. This build in dungeons plays somewhat how we will feel in raid, minus Emerald Bloom usage as that spell isn't as great in dungeons. We'll get to that in the raid versions. Build 3. Once again, I'm a big Dream Breath enjoyer, so I started experimenting with the dungeon build focused on the strengths of both TA and Dream Breath. We can consistently alternate strong TA shields, Dream Breath burst heals, and shower the group in near permanent Dream Breath hots and buffed reversions. First focus here is TA, so we take the staples to get there. Second focus is Dream Breath, so we want to path all the way down to Renewing Breath while focusing on spending the least amount of points for the most power to have enough points to go down the rest of the tree. Emerald Communion's path is not only less points, but it's a seriously strong emergency cooldown, which I'll go over later. You might notice this is the only build that includes Energy Loop. This is because it could be super important for this build for 2 reasons. Using TA and Dream Breath so often is extremely mana intensive, and since PA offers echoes for free, we naturally have more raw essence and essence burst to spend on Disintegrate, which now becomes our mana source. Anytime we don't need to heal, we will be sucking mana from the bad guys. This build could potentially offer the most sustained healing throughput. Now we enter the raid. It's possible variants of the previous builds could also perform well in raid, but I really get the feeling Emerald Blossom and its host of talents that duplicate and multiply its efficiency were designed with raid healing in mind. For starters, Emerald Blossom is one of our longer heals, as it creates a circular heal radiating out from the target. It heals up to 5 targets, and then the chain begins. From there, Fluttering Seedlings fires off 2 seedlings to smart heal targets that can reach even further away. Field of Dreams gives each of those seedlings a 30% chance to create a brand new Emerald Blossom at the target's feet. And finally, the Capstone Cycle of Life causes every 3rd blossom either casted or created to leave behind a sprout that's its dormant for 15 seconds, collecting 10% of all nearby healing. Once it pops, it spreads healing out evenly across all targets within 25 yards, similar to Shaman's Cloudburst Totem. As you can see, this chain reaction can lead to some seriously hilarious heal explosions. This build combines this combo with the tried and true TA for an excellent spread of stacked healing and shields for our allies. Build 5. This build is a branch off of the last one, dropping TA completely for the goal of being almost strictly Emerald Blossom focused. Same concept as before with spamming Essence on Emerald Blossom, but we really lean into it, actively fishing for as many Essence Burst procs and Essence generation as possible. The freed up points grants access to Exhilarating Burst for even burster heals. Dreamflight Path or Stasis optional, but Stasis equals more flowers, so that might be the play. Honestly, the Preservation tree is so loaded with powerful talents that it's really difficult, if not impossible, to get all the things you want. This is a sign of a well-designed tree. To feel happy with your paths, but still be unsure of what change you'd be even happier with. There's a few more talents that definitely deserve a shout out and are almost always taken. Timeless Magic leans into Reversion's efficiency even more. 30% longer reversion is huge, and in reality it ends up being even more than 30%, just because that extra time gives reversion more chances to crit, thus extending them even longer. Increasing the duration of time dilation doesn't seem to bring all that much value in my opinion, and neither does the longer echo buff since I often find myself consuming echoes faster than I can create them. Regardless, this is still a top tier talent. Reversion is often one of our overall top heals, mind you. Grace period. 10% increased healing taken buff on targets with reversion? Great. Reversions casted on a target with echo applied, giving them 2 stacks of this buff? Amazing. When your group has echoed reversions on them, you're pumping out 10% more healing throughput. Another point, double reversion with grace period makes our sustained tank healing a lot better, which is probably one of our weaknesses. Brownie points for that. We bring a solid toolkit of healing CDs for the moments of real danger. Rewind is an absolute monster of a healing CD. It gets double healing in dungeons, which easily tops your entire group right after a huge AoE hit. Stasis is another ramp-like ability. You activate it, it tracks your next 3 healing abilities to use, and then sits in your pocket ready to use for the next 30 seconds. Reactivating it then fires off a replication of all 3 of those healing spells used prior. Great way to copy some of your biggest heals in preparation for a big mechanic. Emerald Communion is also very powerful. You channel and it begins healing you for a high amount, giving you mana as well. Once you're healed past 100% HP, it begins to smart heal the nearby most damaged allies for the same amount. Each tick heals about 20% plus of your total HP, so this works as a great emergency filler when people are out of range and need to heal right now, or just when you want to take your hands off the keyboard for a few seconds. Overall, Preservation Evoker feels awesome to play. There's a ton of synergy between our individual spells and plenty of them to think about from GCD to GCD. From preparing for incoming damage, to delaying damage intake, to burst heals, it really makes you feel in control. A question I often see is, what is Evoker healing like compared to other healers? And I'd say the devs did a great job of making it feel unique all on its own. But if I had to compare, it plays most similarly to Resto Shaman, but with a splash of the ramping flavor that Disc Priest brings, while gaining extra healing from doing damage like both Disc and Holy Paladin. Yeah, it's pretty wild. If you already enjoy playing Devastation, then it'll serve you well to dive into Preservation too. Not only because off-speccing heals will be a great way to get faster dungeon queues on Dragonflight launch, but because it's actually just so fun. If you're not super used to healing, it could be a bit daunting to dip your toes in, but I promise once you totally fail your first dungeon or two, you'll start to get the hang of it. On the flip side, if you like to heal, I know you'll like Evoker as it brings a fresh, new playstyle unlike any other healer. I foresee many Preservation ults on launch alongside your healer main. Hope you had as much fun watching this video as I did making it. Whether this is your first introduction to Preservation Evoker or you've already put tons of hours into beta, if you learned at least a thing or two, hit the like, subscribe, and notification bell. I love seeing my subscriber count increase because it lets me know I'm doing something right. Also go follow my Twitch channel at Vice_Viscera. I'll be participating in the upcoming raid testing for Vault of the Incarnates, the first raid of Dragonflight. Keep your eyes peeled for my next videos to get a first look at what sounds like an absolutely awesome raid and how the mechanics work. Thanks again. See you next time.